Good evening and welcome to the Surreal Estate News. I'm Dan.
And I'm Carrie. We have a special guest joining us today, Chairman of the House Budget Committee, Republican Representative Paul Ryan.
But first, a few housing-related headlines from our area. Larry Gluck of Stellar Management has requested to transfer his loan on Independence Plaza, a 1,300-unit, formerly affordable housing complex that he owns in Lower Manhattan, to a special servicer. Special servicers are typically involved in developments that are in default and headed towards foreclosure.
Gluck quickly issued a statement to the residents of Independence Plaza, reassuring them that no matter what, he will still make a ridiculous amount of money while tenants continue to face deteriorating conditions and harassment.
It's a win-win situation.
Also in the news, the U.S. Justice Department is suing Deutsche Bank, accusing them of making bad housing loans and then funneling them into government insurance programs. Defaults on these loans have cost the government up to $1 billion so far.
In a statement, Deutsche Bank claimed that the charges were unreasonable and unfair and announced, quote, they will take their Deutsche Ball and go Deutsche home.
That U.S. Justice Department is so mean.
So mean. And now, to our featured guest. U.S. Congressman Paul Ryan introduced a budget proposal which passed the House on April 15th. This proposal calls for major spending cuts, which Mr. Ryan claims will reduce the deficit. Today, we will discuss the possible effects of these cuts on affordable housing and other programs. His proposal has been applauded by many, especially carrying support of Tea Party enthusiasts.
I don't know about that Tea Party, but Paul Ryan sure gets my kettle boiling.
I thought you were saying earlier he makes you physically ill.
No, Dan, his proposal makes me ill. But if you look past that into his steely blue eyes that are so short-sighted they can't see beyond pushing a partisan agenda to the long-term effects, and his broad shoulders that are completely unwilling to lift any of the burden of the poor, disabled, or elderly in this country.
Okay then, let's move on, shall we? And welcome Representative Ryan to our show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, your proposal has caused a lot of debate. Many are concerned what these drastic cuts will mean for programs like Medicaid and Medicare. Isn't there a way to reduce the deficit without focusing on programs that assist the most vulnerable in our society?
Well then,
we don't have to start out with such a difficult topic, do we? So Paul, can I call you Paul?
sure.
So Paul, how are you enjoying your stay in New York City?
I just got in, but it's very nice.
So where are you staying?
The Plaza Hotel.
Oh, that's a very lovely hotel. Room number?
Okay, if I can interject for a moment, your plan would also cut the food stamp program by $127 billion. How do you propose that states should institute these cuts for families that desperately need assistance?
Speaking of food, Paul, did you know that Mario Batali's opened a new restaurant?
No,
If you have some free time after the show, I would love to take you and we could see some.
Excuse me, but your plan proposes $4.5 trillion in cuts, and it appears nearly two-thirds would be to low-income programs. Why does this plan depend so heavily on cuts to low-income programs rather than, say, raising corporate taxes?
Right, well with the major debt crisis we are facing, we have to make difficult decisions that will affect everyone.
It seems that these decisions are particularly hard on the poor.
Now Dan, you don't have to be rude. So Paul, I understand that you've been going around holding town hall meetings to hear from the public about their feelings about your proposal.
Yes, I believe it is important to explain why this action is needed, and that people, once they understand the situation we are in, will agree that these steps are necessary.
So you believe in being held accountable by your constituents?
Yes, of course.
So you wouldn't mind giving out your private cell phone number to a concerned citizen who only...
Okay. Can we please focus on the issue at hand? Let's move on to affordable housing. If applied across the board, your resolution would force cuts of 12% to HUD rental housing programs and 18% cuts by 2021. What do you have to say to the nearly 5 billion people who depend on rental assistance?
Yes, as I said, these decisions are going to be very hard on everyone.
So I know, Paul, that you've been making a lot of difficult decisions lately. How do you relax after a hard day? Because I know this great
Your proposal would also require time limits and work requirements for people receiving subsidy. What about those who are elderly, disabled, or cannot find work?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dan, but that's all I have time for today. It's getting late, and I really need to get going. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it. And what?
Call me, Paul. Hi. So I think that went well. What?
Well, it looks like that's all the time we have tonight. Tune in next time for the SurRealEstate News.
What?